We are still reading from A World Transformed. I'm coming to you a little earlier than usual. Um, really trying to figure out how to organize my work so I can get as much work done as possible. I'm always doing that. That's always a process. Creating more ads to promote myself and how to use all my platforms. I have a lot of platforms, and some of them I haven't been using, so I need to do that. And I think I figured it out. Also, trying to get out of this building before it falls down in on me. I'm on the first floor. I don't want it to collapse. I don't want it to hurt anybody. I'm thinking what's probably going to happen here is what happened in another building. I think I might have had two buildings like this where a wall just collapses, so the front facing wall. In which case, I would just be able to. Well, actually, I can't walk outside because there's a dip going into the basement. Um, but I would be able to put my things over onto the stoop if the stoop is still standing, and I'll be able to climb out and go out. Uh, all my stuff is packed already because it's only a matter of time. And my building is so bad that someone called me on the day of the earthquake and said, "Did you feel that?" I said, "Yeah, I felt that, but I thought it was just somebody walking down the stairs of my building because every time somebody walks down the stairs, the building shakes. So when the earthquake happened, that's what it feels like every day somebody walks down the stairs of my building. So I don't think I'm over exaggerating to think that this building probably is not going to stand too long. I filed a complaint with the buildings department. I looked up the building, has about 285 violations. Um, I had to take the apartment because I was coming out of a shelter, and if I had turned it down, they basically would have stopped working for me. So now I'm trying to move on and move out, and I hope um, that my neighbors do the same because I don't want anyone to get hurt. Let's get into the reading. And we're dealing with freedom, what it takes to be free. Okay. The law often conspired against freed slaves. By the mid 18th century, Brazilian slaves with no obvious proof of freedom or without written instructions to be in public could be categorized as and rounded up alongside, let me get the volume up. There we go. Stray animals. So let's read that again. The law often conspired against freed slaves. By the mid 18th century, Brazilian slaves with no obvious proof of freedom or without written instructions to be in public could be categorized as and rounded up alongside stray animals if they were not claimed by owners after notice had been given. They would be sold at auction. A letter from the King of Portugal in 1728 ordered that the income derived from the slaves who are found without masters, like that from stray cattle, ought to be paid to my royal treasury. Local police published the names and descriptions of slaves they held as strays, and subsequent advertisements gave notice of their impending auction and the price expected. If you're walking around without an ID, you can be hauled off. You could be charged with things. They could say you look like someone, and you could be in the system for months, maybe years, before you see a judge just for not having an ID in the United States. Or at least in New York City, you can. In their search for runaways, slave owners unintentionally left us with astonishing historical portraits of some remarkable people, alongside simple accounts of humble, ordinary individuals merely seeking an escape from bondage. Consider the search for this runaway in Jamaica, 1790. June 2nd, 1790. Absconded. A Negro sailor man of the Coromantee nation is well acquainted in and with all the different islands to windward. He has been on the continent of America. He is artful, speaks the English, French, Dutch, Danish, Portuguese languages. Excuse me. A few simple lines in contemporary newspapers hide a multitude of attainments and abilities alongside the individual's hopes. They speak of personal and often intimate African lives thrown into confused upheavals of travel and slavery in all corners of the Atlantic. John Koofy, aged about 26 years, has a blemish in the right eye, and his face heavily marked with facial scarring. Was detained in a Pennsylvania jail in 1747. Having worked as a sailor from Madeira to Maryland, but en route, his master had been shot by Spanish privateers. Another man, Cato, a short, well-set fellow, and speaks good English, had escaped in Philadelphia in 1748. When he went away, he had irons on his legs and about the neck, but probably has cut them off, as he has done several times before on the like occasion. He generally skulks about the city. Sometimes runaways were distinguished by an owner's initial branded on their body. Maria, a washerwoman in Jamaica, had been absent for months in 1782, but was easily recognized by her owner's initials, which she bears on one of her shoulders. Runaways sought to pass themselves off as free, adopting any number of guises, names, alibis, any elaborate story that suited their purpose. The Jamaican newspaper Cornwall Chronicles in March 1785 sought the return of a Negro man named Homer, by trade a carpenter, as he is an artful, cunning fellow and speaks good English, and it is supposed he will endeavor to pass for a free man. Masters of nearby ships were warned against taking him on board. Advertisement often provided precise physical details of a runaway in the hope of having them identified and retrieved. A Brazilian planter, 1845, described one runaway African as short in stature, thin, well-made body, dark color, face rather long, pale jaw, almost no beard, lips rather full, round head, and is in the habit of going about with long hair, small eyes, long eyelashes, good teeth, nose medium large, speaks in a refined, humble, and insincere way. This could be anybody. I wonder if these people actually wanted the slaves back, or were just putting an ad in, because what some masters would do is let the slaves escape, and you had to kind of put an ad in so that the other slave masters wouldn't suspect you of helping, kind of thing. Because this could be, I don't understand, that could be anybody. Now the branding is what you would do if you really want your slaves to be bonded to you. Excuse me. The same year, a runaway female from Mozambique was described as 30 years old, regular height, strong, big breasts, with a mark under her left eye. Has one of her fingers defective on her right hand. Well, that's a little more descriptive. An escaped 14-year-old was said to be very thin and very talkative. A tall runaway aged 18 fled in 1855 with manacles on his hands and should have some marks on his feet as a result of wearing irons for some days. If they had no outstanding physical features, a runaway's clothing might provide a clue. A new shirt of Bahia cotton, old pants, and a hat of old leather. Cotton shirt, white pants, and a hat of rice straw. Who could fail to notice the 45-year-old Camillo, a master carpenter, sailor, and hydraulic works machinist, who ran away from a plantation in Sao Paulo in 1872. And here's the description. Speaks with a high voice and always looks frightened. Has some teeth missing in front and lettering on his forehead and on the palms of his hand, which says, Slave of Donna Fortunata. Always wearing on his head cap or handkerchief to hide the letters on his forehead. Okay. Damn, they put one on his forehead. Such descriptions come as close as possible to a sketch or photograph, and they capture not merely an image of the escaped slave, but the pursuers unwittingly often left us with vivid accounts of the fugitive's misery. So that's the end. We can read the rest of this. It's just one more paragraph in the section. In 19th century Brazil, runaways tended to be younger men, usually with itinerant jobs, with better clothing and rudimentary literary or numerate skills. The case has been made that slave runaways were not typical of their wider slave community, but whenever we look at the enslaved throughout the Americas, their owners were troubled by runaways, constantly trying to staunch the flow of escapes, punishing those who persisted and going to great lengths to retrieve them. So, again, you have people fighting for freedom, using all the tricks necessary, and you have masters trying to keep them in a position where they can labor and work for free. And it's really something, and it's inspiring when you hear how people fought for freedom back then. Whereas now, you just keep me with a device, and even in New York City, they really don't always ask for shelter. Just keep me in a device. You sleep on the train, you can sleep in the park, you can sleep in the bank, in the ATM sections at night. They sleep all kinds of places, and as long as they have their device, they're happy and can find a meal. And you can usually find a meal in New York City, either at a pantry usually or at a homeless shelter usually. They have some shelters in New York City that cook for anybody, but only house a certain number. So it's something. It's rough. It's rough. And I don't think that things have gotten better. I think that black people in particular are in the same position they were in. There were freed blacks then. There were wealthy blacks then. There were some black slave owners. That don't mean that the majority or the overwhelming majority of us were doing well. And I think that's the same thing that's happening now. As a matter of fact, the wealthy blacks back then actually did what the wealthy blacks today pretend like they do, or either criticizes you for asking them to do. And that is, back then, unless you were a slave owner directly and you were wealthy and had some, you probably helped some other black people, even if it was only your family, right? So you don't even see that these days. I mean, families splitting up, and it's a shame. Until next reading, support the channel, hit all the links. I never actually hit the like and subscribe. If you want to, if you like these things, I just assume that you would, but I guess I should ask: like, subscribe, hit all the links and support. And until next time, take care and be safe. It's going to be a rough summer.